What up, everybody? I know you weren't expecting this. I know that I'm probably going to have like 12 people here. That's okay. That's okay. I just saw like this live press conference, a live press conference that RFK is supposed to be holding now. Media is all gathering around there. Media is all gathering around to make an announcement about dropping out of the race. Obviously, everyone wants to know if he's going to end up endorsing. Are you going to end up endorsing the President Trump? As if you haven't been able to catch my lives, I've been doing a lot of coverage about this developing story. The backdrop of this whole thing. This is at the conference there right now, and I was like, I don't want to miss this. I don't want to, if he's going live. I need to watch this with you. It's delayed to 2:30. Is that what they're saying? Delayed to 2:30? I was trying to find out what time this conference is happening. I see people there. I see everything happening. It's really delayed to 2:30. All right, so I'm going to give you some backdrop. At 2:30 I can do. I was like, I can't do this for like 2 hours. I can't sit here waiting for 2 hours. People think I just roll off a show for 2 hours and it's like nothing. No, there's a lot of prep that goes into that. I can't just sit idly talking to you for 2 hours without doing some massive homework beforehand. Unless sometimes whatever. No one cares about that. Bottom line is, those of you who are not following the story as to exactly what the hell is happening here and why it is that he's dropping out, why it is that he has or maybe endorsing Trump when he's long said that he has no interest in being part of a Trump administration. Although I guess every politician has to say that they never plan on joining forces. I mean, Vivek said the same thing at one point in his campaign. Anyway, but there have been developments over the last several weeks in particular, really during the course of the summer. The Democrats have been coming very hard after RFK. Very, very hard, which is indicative of their concern that he's eating more from Kamala Harris than he is eating from Trump. Which is possible. It's possible. But if he's able to help galvanize his supporters to come on over to the Trump train, I think that could actually be this would arguably be the most significant endorsement possible. This is arguably the most, especially coming at this time. DNC has just concluded, obviously, yesterday. This is the high watermark for Kamala Harris. I believe that this will be her high watermark for how popular she is. And we saw how the Democrats were effective in blunting the growth of the Trump train in the wake of the attempted assassination by switching out their candidates and all of a sudden changing the whole conversation where people just stopped talking about the assassination. Instead, they were talking about the president stepping out of the race. And now, and that really was effective, despite the fact that this is how effective it was. She was a failed candidate in 2020. She's part of an administration team that was disastrous, and they're trying to respin now as historic, but a disastrous administration, which has led to unprecedented levels of illegal aliens, record highs for this century in inflation, disastrous money spending, shutting down our energy, crazy woke levels of changing laws with respect to allowing children to run amok and get Frankensteined without parental consent. I mean, we're living in what most people would think is end of days, and the left is trying to herald as being, this is just amazing administration. It's crazy. And she was so unpopular that less than 3 months ago, the Democrats trying to figure out how to get off the ticket so that she wouldn't be an anchor to Biden. And now she's top of the ticket. And so she went from, literally 0 to hero, supposedly. But it's all smoke and mirrors. Everyone understands that. She's going to struggle mightily, you would imagine, any sort of debate. Although, frankly, she chose the one debate she agreed to was the one where she has like one of her best friends questioning her. But she has no policies. She really has nothing. And yet, instead of Trump trouncing Biden, we're seeing that this is now neck and neck, at least temporarily, at least now with like 75 days left to the election or thereabouts. So RFK, over the course of the summer, has been having one hit piece after another that's been put out against him by various mainstream media organizations, and the Democrats have been fighting him hard in the courts. Specifically, they've been trying to knock him off of the ballots and appear likely to not successfully knock him off the ballots in a number of key states, to the point where he couldn't possibly get 270 electoral votes, even if he won all the states he remained on, which is obviously never going to happen. So, that being the case, he seems as if he's on the cusp of dropping out. If you missed some of the interviews, his vice president, wannabe vice president, is a billionaire woman. I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. Let me pull this up. You'll see in an interview she gave this week, which signaled, this was really the first signal that they would be dropping out of the race. Let me pull that up for you here. I'm sure I have something. Hold up. How am I drawing a blank on her name? Why don't you give me the name? Give me the name. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the name.
The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state.
Nicole Shanahan.
They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to.
You mentioned end of days. I know it's in the book of Revelation about that. Is there a Jewish teaching on that? With all that's going on, I've been wondering about that. Thanks. It's such a great question. Such a great question. I'll tell you that there is a lot of, there's very little, and yet there's a lot. If you look at Torah, referring to the 5 books of the Torah given by Moses, if you look at Torah, there's almost no reference to it at all. Very, very veiled reference to end of days and messianic times. If you look in Isaiah, obviously talks a lot about end of days, and he's regarded by Orthodox Jews as being a genuine prophet. But everything that we see there is very veiled. It's actually incumbent upon us to believe in the coming of the Messiah and the end of days. That's considered one of the 13 essential precepts that are a requirement that we embrace as part of our faith. So one of them is that the Messiah will eventually come, and that's I have it listening in the background, by the way. I can still hear the thing going on, so I'm not going to miss anything. But apparently, it's not starting to 2:30. But it's so shrouded and complex that there's a lot of disputes amongst rabbinic authorities, and I certainly believe that I think we are near the end of days. I don't see how the world can survive the way that it is. I believe we're much, much closer to the end of days than people actually can imagine. I just don't see how the world can survive in a world where people cannot accept basic truth. Meaning, like, literally not just something that's so foundational, like what a woman is. You can make a joke about, like, what is a woman, whatever. when people can see things with their own eyes and say, I don't see that. That's just, you can't have a functioning society, because then there's no truth. There's nothing's truth. There's complete, everything we're living in here is a fantasy land. So I do believe that we are near the end of times. I'm not going to sit here, I'm predicting this or that. And in part because I never would predict, even in private conversations. And I think this is the part where the interview where she starts getting serious about her stuff. So I do think that, and I think that's, people try to interpret Isaiah to basically figure out what he means. But there are certain things that, for example, he talks about in Isaiah, and I'm not going to get all biblical on you. I think it's a fair question, but I don't think that people want to hear me get biblical in this platform. I will say this, like, there's certain things, like he talks about how there'll be like plenty of bounty, but no one will be able to afford it, which is describing basically hyperinflation. He talks about there being war in the end of days between entity Gog and Magog, and there's even dispute about whether Gog and Magog are two different forces, or whether, I think Magog is a leader of Gog, or Gog is a leader of Magog, that one is the leader, and that they're going to war with the people. And people have tried over and over again to say, oh, this is what it says in Isaiah. This is what it says in Isaiah. This thing we're seeing here, that's from Isaiah. This thing we're seeing here, they said it with World War II. Oh, so like that was Gog and Magog, that was Adolf. Like, people have tried applying it. I do think at some point it will be the appropriate application. I just don't have the hubris to claim that I know that that I'm seeing here with this incident or this person or this fight or this world stage clash. I don't have the hubris to say that this is X. And few rabbis do either, which is why we're sort of left just, doing what we do on a day-by-day basis and just figuring God's going to sort it out. He usually does. Not usually. Always does. Not always the way you're hoping for, but frequently not the way you're expecting. U.S. versus Tamori Morgan rules laws against machine gun mispossession unconstitutional. Yes. I missed this. Lord Costello, welcome to the following. The following, which is not at all a cult. Type of cult. We welcome you aboard and glad to have you in here. It's really just about personal growth. How can you tell a real rabbi prophet from a fake? Are you talking in contemporary times or ancient times? I can't. Joe, hasn't the Saturday arrived? I mean, Kamalalala. That's good. That's good. It's really good. All right. Anyway, we're going to watch this here. Let me just pull this out. I'm going to pull out the Watch Live RFK. Leave this over here so I don't miss it. Shrink this so I can sort of have two screens happening at the same time. With that, you guys don't know what I'm doing, but I just sort of need to adjust stuff here. And we're going to watch Nicole Shanahan talk about, this is from earlier this week, where she was explaining why it is that what we're seeing today looks like it's about to come to pass.
Partnerships, as maybe some of the other Silicon Valley groups that I'm not going to name.
This is her explaining that they're not in talks in Paris.
But I will say that if we are splitting hairs, I would much rather, obviously, I'd much rather see Bobby and I in the White House. I think we'd do a much better, cleaner, transparent, less corrupt job around all of these things. But if we're splitting hairs, I would say that I trust the future of this country more under the leadership of the Trump and the Thiels and the JD Vances than I do right now of the Harrises and Reid Hoffmans.
Very interesting. All right, then what do you think about Walz as
it's interesting
VP?
Because Kennedy is synonymous with Democrat. The name Kennedy is, I mean, put aside, Kennedy in the Senate, but the Kennedy family, which he's obviously, son of Bobby Kennedy, nephew of John Kennedy, they're synonymous with Democrats.
I love his jazz hands. I mean, I will say they're really good at branding over there. Waltz is somebody I think was a relatively safe choice, but he only sells in an environment in which stolen valor is not like a big deal. Right? He has lied about his military background.
Hold on a second.
Going twice. Just make sure you guys can all hear me. Just one more time. Thumbs going up in the air.
I just want to.
Thumbs up. I'm just looking for our friend over here in the corner.
Yep,
you're good there. Okay, we're going to be starting shortly. Just everybody settle in, and thank you for being here.
All right. I'm watching that on my other screen here.
And if you're a veteran, you look at Waltz and you're appalled that this is not a patriot. This is somebody who has lied, who was terrified of being deployed, who was kind of sneaky.
I hate Waltz.
And tried to use his military service as a political.
This is when Nicole Shanahan is a billionaire who's invested tens of millions.
And his peers in the military have only negative things to say. So that matters a lot to people who care about these things. Unfortunately, there's a massive population here in the United States that thinks about stolen valor as no biggie. And so my concern is more about that there's so many that aren't taking this seriously than I do about the man himself. But obviously, if the man himself then becomes elected by this population, I think we're in trouble. This is not like the values, the moral compass that is being just accepted as normal by this segment of the population is scary to me.
I hear that.
Well,
all right. There were rumors going around that RFK was in talks with Trump, that he was in talks with the Harris camp for a potential endorsement to either of them if they could give him I presume a spot in one of their cabinets. Is there any truth to it? Would love to hear about that.
Definitely not in talks with Harris. Definitely never have brought up this idea of an endorsement with Harris. Definitely have never brought up a cabinet position with Harris. So those are the MSN just taking something and spinning it in a way that makes their chosen political
I think he
group
backed away from
look
that.
good.
My recollection is he backed away from
fake
that.
news.
Well, at least as a candidate, and this is a fair concern because I agree with you that it is a scam, 100%. It's not even a question to me. I used to suspect it was a scam, and I said I'm not sure I buy it. That was me 4 years ago. At this point, I'm positive it's a scam. Positive, but from what I understand, he's much more environmentalist about clean air, clean water than he is about climate change. At least that's as Bobby Kennedy, the candidate, at least.
That being said, we have offered to talk to everybody about what your policies are, who's going to be in your cabinet. Do you want to hear any of our takes on policy and what might work? We've open sourced our platform very proudly. And I will say that Trump has taken genuine, sincere interest in our policies around chronic disease. He takes it seriously. For that reason, I think it behooves us to sit and see if we can actually make some real change. And if that is a unity party.
If you join late, I'm going to be interjecting on this as soon as he goes live, which is supposed to be at 2:30. So when he comes out, I have a live feed going up on a different screen. So when he comes up, I am going to pull it up and cut this off.
I think that it is something that we absolutely owe to the American public to explore.
What would a unity party look like?
I think it would be on day one, making sure that our health, the arm of the government responsible for health, HHS, is directed by someone we can trust, someone without ties to big pharma, someone who understands the foundations of and preconditions of healthy life, somebody who is not going to sell out our children to profiteering.
Okay, when would you guys make that decision? There's obviously huge concerns that you guys are a spoiler candidate. And so I understand there'll be a public facing message, but I'm very curious how you guys think about that.
We did not start this campaign. I did not put in tens of millions of dollars to be a spoiler candidate. I put in tens of $millions to win, to fix this country, to do the right thing. I will say that Clear Choice, this PAC, this DNC aligned PAC that was created specifically to take us out, has spent millions of dollars to take us out. They have unfortunately turned us into a spoiler. And we don't want to be a spoiler. We wanted to win. We wanted a fair shot. The DNC made that impossible for us. Awesome. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us. I mean, the extent by which the sabotage.
If you're wondering who Endug is my head mod. I think in Rumble. I think the first person I made a mod in Rumble. So thanks for popping over here to show the love.
They've unleashed upon us. It's mind blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways.
The answer to why this is a great question you're asking, Nacho Kitty. The reason was because he was in Harrisburg 2 days ago, fighting to stay on the ballot. So that's why. In fact, I plan on bringing that clip up next.
Does. I really wanted a fair shot.
And that's what she's talking about now.
And I believed in the America that I,
state after state,
a little girl, pledged an allegiance to.
You can see how heartbroken
that is not where we are today. And it's not because
it looks like she's practically holding back tears. And I'm not saying that at all in a derisive or mocking way. She looks really, really heartbroken.
Of the Republican Party taking us out. It is exclusively because of the Democratic Party taking us out. And I am so disappointed I ever helped them. I am so disappointed that I helped Chuck Schumer in that Georgia runoff secure a majority. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And it's really devastating. So to answer your question, we are not spoilers. That was never our motivation. We really wanted a fair shot. I think had we had a fair shot, we would have won. I still would love to see in the last 80 days of this election some miracle play out where we get a chance to debate. I don't think they're going to let us. And, given this, I think we are taking a very serious look at making sure that the people that have corrupted our fair and free democracy do not end up in office in November. It's hard. I mean, it's really hard, Tom, to say these words because it's also acknowledging how bad things are.
Yeah, it's hard to hear the words. Do you guys see any path to victory at this point?
I mean, technically, if we can stay on the ballots, we've qualified for all the ballots now, which is like an enormous feat. Like you don't understand. The system was designed after Ross Perot to keep this from ever happening again. And we accomplished it. So technically we could win. We could absolutely win still. The problem is if you censor a candidate as we've been censored, people don't get a chance to even hear us. there are things that could happen.
And all jokes aside, I always talk about personal growth as being part of the following. This is what personal growth is. When you're able to actually recognize your mistakes. If you don't recognize your mistakes, you're not growing. You're not. For example, I produce short content that nobody wants to watch. And I know I'm doing something wrong. I don't know what it is, but I know I'm doing something wrong, trying to figure it out. So I'm experimenting in that. I do have the occasional feed that pops out every once in a while, but it's not a matter of me saying the public is wrong. It's like, no, I'm doing something wrong. My vision is not being reflected in the public eye, at least. So I have to do something differently for sure. I'm not sure what it is yet, though. I'm still figuring that out.
Happen that would still allow us to win in November, even in this environment.
That's what I just said.
It could, you can't predict the number of variables. But as long as we remain on the ballots, we could win. The question is the risk of a Harris-Walz presidency worth us staying in? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves right now. Do we trust Trump and in his personal sincerity to really do the right thing for our country and chronic disease, balance the budget, end these forever wars? Is he somebody that's going to continue to invite people like Bobby and I into the conversation? Or is he going to fall victim again to the things he fell victim to in his first administration? So we're weighting it all. It's not an easy calculation. We want what's best for this country first and foremost. And it is, it's an interesting place to be. I won't lie. Like you can't make this stuff up.
And Master Phillips bringing in 5, count them 5 new members to the following. Thank you. Please make sure Lisa, Pam Ronning, Q Revere, Hubbleson, and Sultan of Fahim, all gifted courtesy of the King of Recruitment. The King of Recruitment bringing into the following 5 new members. God bless you. Welcome to the following, Q Revere. I know you're probably saying, what's this following stuff about? I haven't seen Joe in ages. I don't know what the heck the following is. Just an assembly of people here who are interested in greater personal growth, like, recognizing your flaws and things of that nature through community, unity, leadership training. This is not at all a cult. It's a cult. So welcome, and please express your gratitude. That's part of being part of the following, is recognizing when someone does you what back in the day we used to call a solid. They do you a solid. I don't know why we used to say that, but we definitely did. I can't get away from that. Being humble, seriously lacking virtue in government officials these days, crap anyone in the public eye. This means to me more than other signaling I've seen from those in the public eye. Yeah, no, what she's saying is good. Okay. It's good stuff. What she's realizing is that monoparty is real. Yes, or uniparty. Yeah, that's completely right, Lord Castellan. Populists are despised. They might not agree what freedom is, but they do agree that you're not allowed to have any of it. It's true. It's true. This is 100% true. They don't like freedom. Freedom is a bad thing. Her interview with Adam Carolla this morning is an eye opener. Oh, she did a new one this morning. Now I'm curious. Now I want to check that out. I am keeping an eye. Don't worry. I have a live feed going on here that I'm keeping off screen here from you guys. It doesn't look like anything's happening, but you can sort of see people moving a little bit there because this is the live feed that's happening right there. So I am keeping an eye on that to make sure that we don't miss him when he comes on out, because I definitely I do want to catch it live when it happens. And Q Revere, look at that. Q Revere just giving it right back. That's so kind. You see, it was gifted forward, and now he's gifting forward. Very nice. Well done, Q Revere. Text Vat, you can hear the tremble of true emotion at the end there. Yeah, no, she's. I would. That's why I commented it. I think her voice in general is a little crackly, but which is interesting considering who the top of her ticket was. But you can see the expression on her face shows genuine emotion of just feel like she looks heartbroken, and that she's mature enough to control herself from breaking down crying, but that's what she really wanted to do in that moment, and I respect that. You can disagree with her positions, but I truly believe she wants to help America, and I respect the hell out of that. We need more, 100%. And by the way, this is what politics used to be. That's what it used to be. It's like, okay, look, we have different visions as to how to get where we want to go, but we're all in the same. I understand that that's what your hope for America is the same as mine, and that's why back in the day, I would say that Democrats are patriots. Yesterday, I was saying they're not patriots. And Adam Kinzinger got up on stage and managed to hold back his tears for 10 seconds, long enough to say, let me explain something to you, Republicans. Democrats are patriots. Love me, love me, love me, Democrats. Wave for me. Wave your little flags for me. And I was like, no, you know what? They're not. They're not. Because part of patriotism is recognizing that you want America's interests to supersede anyone else's interests. That's part of it. Part of America's interest is accepting constitutional values. They don't. If they don't like the way things are going, they'll change without any just of their own accord. They'll unilaterally decide, okay, this is how we're going to change our primaries. This is how we're going to. This is trying and rigging elections. I don't think they care about America at all. I think they're completely about power. I think that some of the at the top. I'm talking about the people who were in the building, because you couldn't get into the building without being a delegate. You couldn't get into that building. None of them were patriots. None of the people in that attendance there. I think a lot of Democrats in general are patriotic. I think fools, but patriots. But I think that's at the top. No, they don't have America's best interest at heart. They're completely selfish. But this woman, for sure, I agree with you 100%. 100%. Shiloh! These have played dirty against RFK, Bernie, Trump, and Hillary at one point. Did they against Hillary also? Nicole seems sincere. RFK educated himself on things and admits he was wrong when he changed positions. I wouldn't have voted for him, but I like that. Yeah. And I'll tell you something. He definitely seems like he's smart. I want him to have a position. I want people like that to have position. I don't have to agree with you on every piece of your politics. That doesn't mean that in areas where we're aligned and you seem smart and effective, I'd be happy to give you a position. You want to make him attorney general? I'm totally down with that. I think he would be really good at it. He'd be really good at it, I think, if he wanted it. It'll be interesting to see, assuming he endorses Trump, I believe he will be getting some sort of political position. It'll be interesting to see exactly what that is. Alex Jones mentioned something about, the environmental department. That I'm a little more concerned about. I really want to know that he's not going to be about climate change and things of that nature. But someone else mentioned DOH, which I don't know if he's going to do that. I don't know if he's going to do that. That would be ballsy of Trump to put him in DOH, considering how he's so. And that might be what Kennedy wants. Kennedy might want to be in charge of Department of Health, just so he can promote, because he's very strongly against any kind of jabby jabs. So I don't know, Joe. Did you see all the parody interviews? I would argue they were patriots there. Wait, I'm not sure which parody interviews you're referring to there. I'm not sure. I want to check out that Adam Carolla interview with Nicole Shanahan that someone referenced earlier today. Let me see if I can find that while we're waiting for Nicole Shanahan. Adam Carolla. It's an hour.
Nicole Shanahan.
It's an hour and 20 minutes. Oh, okay, he's starting. Let's get up. Let's get up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome so much for being here. I'd like to introduce everyone to bring on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I'm sorry to keep everybody waiting. 16 months ago, in April of 2023, I launched my campaign for President of the United States.
Great opening speech, by the way.
I began this journey as a Democrat, the party of my father, my uncle, the party which I pledged my own allegiance to long before I was old enough to vote. I attended my first Democratic convention at the age of 6 in 1960. And back then, the Democrats were the champions of the Constitution, of civil rights. The Democrats stood against authoritarianism, against censorship, against colonialism, imperialism, and unjust wars. We were the party of labor, of the working class. The Democrats were the party of government transparency and the champion of the environment. Our party was the bulwark against big money interests and corporate power. True to its name, it was the party of democracy. As you know, I left that party in October because it had departed so dramatically from the core values that I grew up with. It had become the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, big ag, and big money. When it abandoned democracy by canceling the primary to conceal the cognitive decline of the sitting president, I left the party to run as an independent. The mainstream of American politics and journalism derided my decision. Conventional wisdom said that it would be impossible even to get on the ballot as an independent because each state poses an insurmountable tangle of arbitrary rules for collecting signatures. I would need over 1 million signatures, something no presidential candidate in history had ever achieved. And then I'd need a team of attorneys and millions of dollars to handle all the legal challenges from the DNC. The naysayers told us that we were climbing a glass version of Mount Impossible. So the first thing I want to tell you is that we proved them wrong. We did it because beneath the radar of mainstream media organs, we inspired a massive independent political movement. More than 100,000 volunteers sprang into action, hopeful that they could reverse our nation's decline. Many worked 10-hour days, sometimes in blizzards and blazing heat. They sacrificed family time, personal commitments, and sleep month after month, energized by a shared vision of a nation healed of its divisions. They set up tables at churches and farmers markets. They canvassed door to door. In Utah and in New Hampshire, volunteers collected signatures in snowstorms, convincing each supporter to stop in the frigid cold, to take off their gloves, and to sign legibly. During a heat wave in Nevada, I met a tall, athletic volunteer who cheerfully told me that he had lost 25 pounds collecting signatures in 117-degree heat. To finance this effort, young Americans donated their lunch money, and senior citizens gave up part of their Social Security checks.
I'm switching over to this.
Organization collected those millions of signatures and more. No presidential campaign in American political history has ever done that. And so I want to thank all of those dedicated volunteers and congratulate the campaign staff who coordinated this enormous logistical feat. Your accomplishments were regarded as impossible. You carried me up that glass mountain. You pulled off a miracle.
Check it out. Thank you.
You achieved what all the pundits said could never be done. You have my deepest gratitude, and I'm never going to forget that, not just for what you did for my campaign, but for the sacrifices you made because you love our country. You showed everyone that democracy is still possible here. It continues to survive in the press and in the idealistic human energies that still thrive beneath the canvas of neglect and of official and institutional corruption. Today, I'm here to tell you that I will not allow your efforts to go to waste. I'm here to tell you that I will leverage your tremendous accomplishments to serve the ideals that we share, the ideals of peace, of prosperity, of freedom, of health, all the ideals that motivated my campaign. I'm here today to describe the path forward that you have opened with your commitment and with your hard labors. Now, in an honest system, I believe that I would have won the election. In a system the kind that my father and my uncles thrived in, a system with open debates, with fair primaries, with regularly scheduled debates, with fair primaries, and with a truly independent media untainted by government propaganda and censorship. In a system of nonpartisan courts and election boards, everything would be different. After all, the polls consistently showed me beating each of the other candidates, both in favorability and also in head-to-head matchups. But I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden.
This is deadly to Kamala.
Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. My uncle and my father both relished debate. They prided themselves on their capacity to go toe-to-toe with any opponent in the battle over ideas. They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days. This is profoundly undemocratic. How are people to choose when they don't know whom they are choosing? And how can this look to the rest of the world? My father and my uncle were always conscious of America's image abroad because of our nation's role as the template for democracy, the role model for democratic processes, and the leader of the free world. Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. But who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days. I do interviews every day. Many of you have interviewed me. Anybody who asks gets to interview me. Some days I do as many as 10. President Trump, who actually was nominated and won an election, also does interviews daily. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters.
That affects
what most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression. And that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. President Biden mocked Vladimir Putin's 88% landslide in the Russian elections, observing that Putin and his party controlled the Russian press and that Putin prevented serious opponents from appearing on the ballot.
Nice.
But here in America, the DNC also prevented opponents from appearing on the ballot.
Yeah. Where's your 88%?
And our television networks expose themselves as Democratic Party organs. Over the course of more than a year in a campaign where my poll numbers reached at times in the high 20s, the DNC-aligned mainstream media networks maintain a near perfect embargo on interviews with me. During his 10-month presidential campaign in 1992, Ross Perot gave 34 interviews on mainstream networks. In contrast, during the 16 months since I declared, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN combined gave only 2 live interviews from me. Those networks instead ran a continuous deluge of hit pieces with inaccurate, often vile, pejoratives and defamatory smears. Some of those same networks and colluded with the DNC to keep me off the debate stage. Representatives of those networks are in this room right now, and I'll just take a moment to ask you to consider the many ways that your institutions have abdicated this really sacred responsibility, the duty of a free press to safeguard democracy and to challenge always the party in power. Instead of maintaining that posture of fear, skepticism toward authority, your institutions have made themselves government mouthpieces and stenographers for the organs of power. You didn't alone cause the devolution of American democracy, but you could have prevented it. The Democratic Party's censorship of social media was even more of a naked exercise of executive power. This week, a federal judge, Terry Doty, upheld my injunction against President Biden, calling the White House's censorship project, quote, the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America. Yep. Doty's previous 155-page decision details how just 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, President Biden and his White House opened up a portal and then invited the CIA, the FBI, CISA, which is a censorship agency. It's the center of the censorship industrial complex, DHS, the IRS, and other agencies to censor me and other political dissidents on social media. Even today, users who try to post my campaign videos to Facebook or YouTube get messages that this content violates community standards. 2 days after Judge Doty rendered his decision this week, Facebook was still attaching warning labels to an online petition calling on ABC to include me in the upcoming debate. They said that violates community standards, their community standards. The mainstream media was once the guardian of the First Amendment and democratic principles, and has joined this systemic attack on democracy. It also, the media justifies their censorship on the grounds of combating misinformation, but governments and oppressors don't censor lies. They don't fear lies. They fear the truth, and that's what they censor.
100%.
And I don't want any of this to sound like a personal complaint, because it's not. For me, it's all part of a journey, and it's a journey that I signed up with. But I need to make these observations because I think they're critical for us doing the thing that we need to do as citizens in a democracy to assess where we are in this country and what our democracy still looks like, and the assumptions about U.S. leadership around the globe. And are we living up? Are we really still a role model for democracy in this country? Or have we made it, a kind of a joke? And here's the good news. While mainstream outlets denied me a critical platform, they didn't shut down my ideas, which have especially flourished among young voters and independent voters, thanks to the alternative media. Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning. In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it.
They always suspend it.
And not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible. In fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269. And I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name. And I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. Not only did we do the impossible by collecting 1 million signatures, we changed the national political conversation forever. Chronic disease, free speech, government corruption, breaking our addiction to war have moved to the center of politics. I can say to all who have worked so hard the last year and a half, thank you for a job well done. 3 great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. And now to throw my support to President Trump. The causes were free speech, a war in Ukraine, and the war on our children. I've already described some of my personal experiences and struggles with the government's censorship industrial complex. I want to say a word about the Ukraine war. The military industrial complex has provided us with a familiar comic book justification, like they do on every war, that this one is a noble effort to stop a supervillain, Vladimir Putin, invading the Ukraine and then to thwart his Hitler-like march across Europe. In fact, tiny Ukraine is a proxy in a geopolitical struggle initiated by the ambitions of the U.S. neocons or American global hegemony. I'm not excusing Putin for invading Ukraine. He had other options. But the war is Russia's predictable response to the reckless neocon project of extending NATO to encircle Russia, a hostile act. The credulous media rarely explain to Americans that we unilaterally walked away from 2 intermediate nuclear weapons treaties with Russia and then put nuclear-ready Aegis missile systems in Romania and Poland. This is a hostile act. And that the Biden White House repeatedly spurned Russia's offer to settle this war peacefully. The Ukraine war began in 2014 when U.S. agencies overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine and installed a hand-picked pro-Western government that launched a deadly civil war against ethnic Russians in Ukraine. In 2019, America walked away from a peace treaty, the Minsk Agreement, that had been negotiated between Russia and Ukraine by European nations. And then in April of 2022, we wanted the war. In April of 2022, President Biden sent Boris Johnson to Ukraine to force President Zelensky to tear up a peace agreement that he and the Russians had already signed, and the Russians were withdrawing troops from Kiev and Donbass and Lugansk. And that peace agreement would have brought peace to the region and would have allowed Donbass and Lugansk to remain part of Ukraine. President Biden stated that month that his objective in the war was regime change in Russia. His Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, simultaneously explained that America's purpose in the war was to exhaust the Russian army, to degrade its capacity to fight anywhere else in the world. These objectives, of course, have nothing to do with what they were telling Americans about protecting Ukraine's sovereignty. Ukraine is a victim in this war, and it's a victim of the West. Since then, of Russia and both Russia and the West. Since then, we have, since tearing up that agreement, forcing Zelensky to tear up the agreement, we've squandered the flower of Ukrainian youth, as many as 600,000 Ukrainian kids and over 100,000 Russian kids, all of whom we should be mourning, have died, and the Ukraine's infrastructure is destroyed. The war has been a disaster for our country as well. We squandered nearly $200 billion already, and these are badly needed dollars in our communities, suffering communities all over our country. The Nord Stream pipeline sabotage and the sanctions have destroyed Europe's industrial base, which formed the bulwark of U.S. national security. A strong Germany with a strong industry is a much, much stronger deterrent to Russia, and a Germany that is deindustrialized and turned into just an extension of U.S. military base.
Yep.
We've pushed Russia into a disastrous alliance with China and Iran. We're closer to the brink of nuclear exchange than at any time since 1962. And the neocons in the White House don't seem to care at all. Our moral authority and our economy are in shambles. And the war gave rise to the emergence of BRICS, which now threatens to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency. This is a first-class calamity for our country. Judging by her bellicose, belligerent speech last night in Chicago, we can assume that President Harris will be an enthusiastic advocate for this and other neocon military adventures. And President Trump says that he will reopen negotiations with President Putin and end the war overnight as soon as he becomes president. This alone would justify my support for his campaign. Last summer, it looked like no candidate was willing to negotiate a quick end to the Ukraine war, to tackle chronic disease epidemic, to protect free speech, our constitutional freedoms, to clean corporate influence out of our government, or to defy the neocons and their agenda of endless military adventurism. But now one of the two candidates has adopted these issues as his own, to the point where he has asked to enlist me in his administration.
Nice.
I'm speaking, of course, of Donald Trump. Less than 2 hours after President Trump narrowly escaped assassination, Callie Means called me on my cell phone. I was then in Las Vegas. Callie is arguably the leading advocate for food safety, for soil regeneration, and for ending the chronic disease epidemic that is destroying America's health and ruining our economy. Callie has exposed the insidious corruption at the FDA, the NIH, the HHS, and the USDA that has caused the epidemic. Callie had been working on and off for my campaign, advising me on those subjects since the beginning. And those subjects have been my primary focus for the last 20 years. I was delighted when Callie told me that day that he had also been advising President Trump. He told me President Trump was anxious to talk to me about chronic disease and other subjects, and to explore avenues of cooperation. He asked if I would take a call from the president. President Trump telephoned me a few minutes later, and I met with him the following day. A few weeks later, I met again with President Trump and his family members and closest advisors in Florida. In a series of long, intense discussions, I was surprised to discover that we are aligned on many key issues. In those meetings, he suggested that we join forces as a unity party. We talked about Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals. That arrangement would allow us to disagree publicly and privately, and fiercely, if need be, on issues over which we differ, while working together on the existential issues upon which we are in concordance.
That's what politics is supposed to be.
I was a ferocious critic of many of the policies during his first administration, and there are still issues and approaches upon which we continue to have very serious differences. We are aligned with each other on other key issues like ending the forever wars, ending the childhood disease epidemics, securing the border, protecting freedom of speech, unraveling the corporate capture of our regulatory agencies, getting the U.S. intelligence agencies out of the business of propagandizing and censoring and surveilling Americans and interfering with our elections. Following my first discussion with President Trump, I tried unsuccessfully to open similar discussions with Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris declined to meet or even to speak with me. Suspending my candidacy is a heart-rending decision for me, but I'm convinced that it's the best hope for ending the Ukraine war and ending the chronic disease epidemic that is eroding our nation's vitality from the inside.
How about cool?
And for finally protecting free speech. I feel a moral obligation to use this opportunity to save millions of American children, above all things. In case some of you don't realize how dire the condition is of our children's health and chronic disease in general, I would urge you to view Dr. Carlson's recent interview with Callie Means and his sister, Dr. Casey Means, who is the top graduate of her class at Stanford Medical School. This is an issue that affects all of us far more directly and urgently than any culture war issue. And all the other issues that we obsess on and that are tearing apart our country. This is the most important issue. Therefore, it has the potential to bring us together. So let me share a little bit about why I believe it's so urgent. Today, 2/3, we spend more on healthcare than any country on earth, twice what they pay in Europe.
Very cliche.
And yet we have the worst health outcomes of any nation in the world. We're about 79th in health outcomes behind Costa Rica and Nicaragua and Mongolia and other countries. Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. And during the COVID epidemic, we had the highest body count of any country in the world. We had 16% of the COVID deaths, and we only have 4.2% of the world's population. And CDC says that's because we are the sickest people on earth. We have the highest chronic disease rate on earth. And the average American who died of COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So these were people who had immune system collapse, who had mitochondrial dysfunction. And no other country has anything like this. 2/3 of American adults and children suffer from chronic health issues. 50 years ago, that number was less than 1%. So we've gone from 1% to 66%. In America, 74% of Americans are now overweight or obese, and 50% of our children. 120 years ago, when somebody was obese, they were sent to the circus. There were case reports done about them. Obesity was almost unknown. In Japan, the childhood obesity rate is 3% compared to 50% here. Half of Americans have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. When my uncle was president, I was a boy. Juvenile diabetes was effectively non-existent. A typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes during his entire career, a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And the mitochondrial disorder that caused diabetes also causing Alzheimer's, which is now classified as diabetes. And it's costing this country more than our military budget every year. There's been an explosion of neurological illnesses that I never saw as a kid: ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, Asperger's, autism. In the year 2000, the autism rate was 1 in 1,500. Now autism rates in kids are 1 in 36, according to CDC nationally. Nobody's talking about this. 1 in every 22 kids in California has autism. And this is a crisis that 77% of our kids are too disabled to serve in the United States military. What is happening to our country? And why isn't this in the headlines every single day? There's nobody else in the world that is experiencing this. This is only happening in America.
Even DOH.
About 18%. And by the way, there has been no change in diagnosis, which the industry sometimes like to say. There has been no change in screening.
That's what I was wondering.
This is a change in incidence. In my generation, 70-year-old men, the autism rates are about 1 in 10,000. In my kids' generation, 1 in 34. I'll repeat, in California, 1 in 22. Why are we letting this happen? Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? These are the most precious assets that we have in this country. How can we let this happen to them? About 18% of American teens now have fatty liver disease. That's like 1 out of every 5. That disease, when I was a kid, only affected late-stage alcoholics who were elderly. Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the old. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 1 in 4 American women is on antidepressant medication. 40% of teens have a mental health diagnosis. And 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall, and 500,000 children on SSRIs. So what's causing this suffering? I'll name 2 culprits. First and the worst is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists who many of whom formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago. Humans aren't biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are now banned in Europe, but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, our medicine, and our environment. Pesticides, food additives, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxic waste permeate every cell of our bodies. The assault on our children's cells and hormones is unrelenting. To name just one problem, many of these chemicals increase estrogen because young children are ingesting so many of these hormone disruptors. America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition. This is not normal. Breast cancer is also estrogen driven, and it now strikes 1 in 8 women. We are mass poisoning all of our children and our adults. Considering the grievous human cause of this tragic epidemic of chronic disease, it seems almost crass to mention the damage it does to our economy.
That's why he's talking about these causes.
But I'll say, it is crippling the nation's finances. When my uncle was president, our country spent $0 on chronic disease. Today, government healthcare spending is almost all for chronic disease. And it's double the military budget. And it is the fastest growing budget item in the federal budget. And chronic disease costs more to the economy as a whole, costs at least $4 trillion, 5 times our military budget. And that's a 20% drag on everything we do and everything we aspire to. Poor and minority communities suffer disproportionately. People who worry about DEI or about bigotry of any kind, this dwarfs anything. We are poisoning the poor. We are systematically poisoning minorities across this country. Industry lobbyists have made sure that most of the food stamp lunch program, about 70% of food stamps and about 70 or 77% of school lunches are processed foods. There's no vegetables. There's nothing that you would want to eat. We are just poisoning the poor citizens, and that's why they have the highest chronic disease burden of any demographic in our country, and the highest in the world. The same food industry lobbied to make sure that nearly all agricultural subsidies go to commodity crops that are the feedstock of processed food industry. These policies are destroying small farms, and they're destroying our soils. We give about, I think, 8 times as much in subsidies to tobacco than we do to fruits and vegetables. It makes no sense. If we want a healthy country, the good news is that we can change all this. We can change it very, very quickly. America can get healthy again. To do that, we need to do 3 things. First, we need to root out the corruption in our health agencies. Second, we need to change incentives in our healthcare system. And third, we need to inspire Americans to get healthy again. 80% of NIH grants go to people who have conflicts of interest. These are the people.
That'd be great.
Virtually everybody who sits, Joe Biden just appointed a new panel to NIH to decide the food recommendations. And they're all people who are from the industry. They're all people who are from the processed food companies.
Biden.
They're deciding what Americans, here is healthy, and the recommendations on the food pyramid, and and what goes to our school lunch programs, what go to the program, the Swiss program, the food stamp programs. They're all corrupted and conflicted individuals. These agencies, the FDA, USDA, and CDC, all of them are controlled by giant for-profit corporations. 75% of the FDA's funding doesn't come from taxpayer, it comes from pharma. And pharma executives and consultants and lobbyists cycle in and out of these agencies with President Trump's backing. I'm going to change that. We're going to staff these agencies with honest scientists and doctors who are free from industry funding. We're going to make sure the decisions of consumers, doctors, and patients are informed by unbiased science.
Yep.
A sick child is the best thing for the pharmaceutical industry. When American children or adults get sick with a chronic condition, they're put on medication for their entire life. Imagine what will happen when Medicare starts paying for Ozempic, which costs $1,500 a month, and it's being recommended for children as young as 6, all for a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. And 74% of Americans are obese. The cost, if all of them took their Ozempic prescription, is $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that is made by Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, and the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. And in our country, the recommendation now is for Ozempic to children at age 6. Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe, and virtually its entire value is based upon its projections of what it's going to sell, of the Ozempic it's going to sell to America. And we have the food lobbyists have a bill in front of Congress today that is backed by the White House, backed by Vice President Harris and President Biden, to allow this to happen. This $3 trillion cost that is going to bankrupt our country. For a fraction of that amount, we could buy organic food for every American family, 3 meals a day, and eliminate diabetes altogether. We're going to bring healthy food back to school lunches. We're going to stop subsidizing the worst foods with our agricultural subsidies. We're going to get toxic chemicals out of our food. We're going to reform the entire food system. And for that, we need new leadership in Washington. Because unfortunately, both the Democrats and the Republican parties are in cahoots with the big food producers, Big Pharma and Big Ag, which are among the DNC's major donors. Vice President Harris has expressed no interest in addressing this issue. 4 more years of Democratic rule will complete the consolidation of corporate and neocon power, and our children will be the ones who suffer most. I got involved with chronic disease 20 years ago, not because I chose to or wanted to. It was essentially thrust upon me. It was an issue that should have been central to the environmental movement. I was a central leader at that time, but it was widely ignored by all the institutions, including the NGOs, who should have been protecting our kids against toxins. It was an orphaned issue, and I had a weakness for orphans. I watched generations of children get sicker and sicker. I had 11 siblings, and I had 7 kids myself. I was conscious of what was happening in their classrooms and to their friends, and I watched these sick kids, these damaged kids. In that generation, almost all of them are damaged. And nobody in power seemed to care or to even notice. For 19 years, I prayed every morning that God would put me in a position to end this calamity. The chronic disease crisis was one of the primary reasons for my running for president, along with ending censorship in the Ukraine war. It's the reason I've made the heart-wrenching decision to suspend my campaign and to support President Trump. This decision is agonizing for me because of the difficulties it causes my wife and my children and my friends. but I have the certainty that this is what I've meant to do. And that certainty gives me internal peace, even in storms. If I'm given the chance to fix the chronic disease crisis and reform our food production, I promise that within 2 years, we will watch chronic disease burden lift dramatically. We will make Americans healthy again. Within 4 years, America will be a healthy country. We will be stronger, more resilient, more optimistic, and happier. I won't fail in doing this. Ultimately, the future, however it happens, is in God's hands and in the hands of the American voters and those of President Trump. If President Trump is elected and honors his word, the vast burden of chronic disease that now demoralizes and bankrupts the country will disappear.
I don't want
this is a spiritual journey for me.
He's part of HHS yet.
I reached my decision through deep prayer, through hard-nosed logic, and I asked myself, what choices must I make to maximize my chances to save America's children and restore national health? I felt that if I refused this opportunity, I would not be able to look myself in the mirror, knowing that I could have saved lives of countless children and reversed this country's chronic disease epidemic. I'm 70 years old. I may have a decade to be effective. I can't imagine that President Harris would allow me or anyone to solve these dire problems. After 8 years of President Harris, any opportunity for me to fix the problem will be out of my reach forever. President Trump has told me that he wants this to be his legacy. I'm choosing to believe that this time he will follow through. His son, his biggest donors, his closest friends, and all support this objective. My joining the Trump campaign will be a difficult sacrifice for my wife and children, but worthwhile if there's even a small chance of saving these kids.
This is really
ultimately the only thing that will save our country.
He's officially joining the campaign.
And our children is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other. That's why I launched my campaign to unify America. My dad and uncle made such an enduring mark on the character of our nation, not so much because of any particular policies that they promoted, but because they were able to inspire profound love for our country and to fortify our sense of ourselves as a national community held together by ideals. They were able to put their love into the intentions and hearts of ordinary Americans and to unify a national populist movement of Americans, Blacks and whites, Hispanics, urban and rural Americans.
Yes.
Inspired affection and love and high hopes and a culture of kindness that continue to radiate among Americans from their memory. That's the spirit on which I ran my campaign and that I intend to bring into the campaign of President Trump. Instead of vitriol and polarization, I will appeal to the values that unite us, the goals that we could achieve if only we weren't at each other's throats. The most unifying theme for all Americans is that we all love our children. If we all unite around that issue now, we can finally give them the protection, the health, and the future that they deserve. Thank you all very much.
That was a great speech. Such a great speech. So no questions there. I'm going to flip over now to Trump, who's talking right now. So let's bring that up now.
For all of us. So let's get out and vote for President Trump. Let's win Nevada.
Being here. You're right. And thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for being here. We just had a very nice endorsement from RFK Jr., Bobby. And I'll be talking about that. We're heading out right after this. We're going to be going to Arizona. We'll be talking about that and a lot of other things too. But I just want to thank everybody. And I want to thank Bobby. That was very nice. That was really very nice. That's big. He's a great guy, respected by everybody. So thank you all for this incredible welcome we're getting. And I'm going to tell Javier the next time we do this together, he's going to give me a little light up here. Can you give me a little light so you can read this little speech? But you know what it does? It makes you speak a little bit less, so that's okay too. But I do want to thank you all, and I want to thank Javier. This is a fantastic restaurant, and the reputation is as good as it gets, as good as it gets. And I'm going to come here next time to eat. Is that okay? I will be doing that too. We have with us Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony, wherever Stavros is. Thank you very much, Stavros. That's an honor. Now. We'll see you soon, okay? Thank you. That's really an honor. Great guy, too. And Nevada GOP Chairman Michael McDonald. Michael. And he's very happy about the no tax on tips because he was the first one that presented after the young, beautiful waitress that suggested. I said, what do you think of it, Michael? He said, I think it's a great idea. But we've come here today to talk about
It's not very long. It's only 10 minutes.
Biggest promise I think that the restaurant workers have had in a long time, and that's no tax on tips. And in our case, we mean it. Somebody that I know just copied it, but you know that's not going to happen. If you're a restaurant worker, a bartender, a hospitality worker, a caddy, a barber, a mover, driver of any kind, or anyone else, you rely on a lot of tip income, hopefully a lot. But when I win in November, hopefully we're going to win. We're going to turn our country around. We're going to make America great again. We're going to let you keep 100% of your tip income and not be harassed. And just so you understand, the other side, Kamala, have you ever heard of her? Kamala? Nobody ever heard of her before. She lost in the first round. She was the first one out. It's a weird thing. He got 14 million votes, and he's sitting on a beach angry as hell. And she got no votes, and she's running. So you explained that to me. But the United States is home to an estimated 5.5 million workers whose livelihoods depend on tip income. And they work with their hands and their talent, their sweat, and their skill. And they are really skilled people, and they're great people. They're people that have been with me always, and I'm with them. I'm doing them a big favor. Nobody ever heard of this concept before, and it's something that makes a lot of sense. As soon as I heard it, I said, let's do it. And then they copied us a couple of months later, but I don't think anybody's buying it. It's like last night, the speech. She made 26 different things that were lies. She lied, but that's okay because a lot of people lie. They'll do anything to get elected, but she lied about, she's increasing taxes, I'm decreasing taxes, and she put it the other way around. Perhaps she misspoke, perhaps. Nearly 2/3 of the workers are women, and an estimated 700,000 single mothers nationwide rely on tip income to support their children. These are some of the best and hardest working people in America, and when I'm president, you are the ones I will be fighting for, and I'll be fighting for you very hard every single day. Kamala Harris is now pretending to endorse my policy. She's got a lot of other policies. She's a copycat. She's a flip-flopper. You know what a flip? She's the greatest flip-flopper in history. She went from communism to capitalism in about 2 weeks. But in fact, Kamala cast the tie-breaking vote to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to go after your tip income. They're going after it in a lot of ways. So I don't know what they're doing now. This has happened with a lot of industries. When we come out with something, they immediately fold. But you know that after the election, if something horrible happened, which is always a possibility.
20 minutes ago. It's only
especially the way they cheat. But if something horrible happened, you know that you'd go right back and you'd never see anything about no tax on tips. You know that. Under Kamala and Crooked Joe Biden, where is he? Where's Joe? What happened to Joe? He's on a beach someplace. He's angry. The IRS has imposed costly and burdensome new reporting requirements on restaurants and other employees. And these employers are great people. They're great people. They really work hard.
My tips.
Like Javier, they work very hard and they do an incredible job. And this is going to make their life a little bit easier because, frankly, for them, it's a lot better, too, when they have happy employees that are making a little more money and just do a better job. People like Javier are very happy. He was happy to hear about this. Every restaurant owner is happy to hear about this. But they're trying to squeeze every penny out of this tip income the government is. And now they're not going to be able to do that. We're going to get this done very fast, too, by the way. Kamala also sponsored legislation to blow up the tip system entirely, which would inflict financial calamity on food servers and bartenders in Las Vegas and all across America.
10 minutes behind.
You know, they have bills pending and things pending and resolutions pending and special orders pending where they're going after your tips. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Are they supposed to be dropping? I assume they're going to be dropping all that stuff, at least until after the election. They'll bring it back after the election. Kamala supports a bill to eliminate the federal tip credit, which would force restaurants to impose large service charges on diners, meaning customers will not leave tips at all. And you'll be stuck with a minimum wage or whatever you might be making. This is something that they're forcing. I will never let that happen. Under the Trump administration, you'll keep your tips and restaurant workers will keep all of your hard-earned money. I met this incredible young woman. She was standing behind the counter. I walked into a restaurant, whatever it may be. What was that restaurant? That Chick-fil-A, right? Very religious owner and a great guy.
I need 5 minutes.
Good
I'll leave this running.
And she saw me and she said, President Trump, and she gave me the biggest hug. She said, you saved my college. And she loved that college, right? And you love me and I love you too. I do actually. But it was like instant chemistry, right?
Yes, I told him earlier, we're best friends.
Yeah. They didn't know I was coming. You know, we do that surprise. I guess we do that for certain reasons like security and things. We don't want to broadcast it too much. But I walked in and she grabbed me and I grabbed her. But I saved her college. That's the historically black colleges and universities. And she loved her college. She loved her college. She thought it was, I said, do you really like it? Was it good? Go ahead, give it a little public.
I love the illustrious Park Atlanta University.
Do you see? And she really did. It was great to see that, as opposed to, oh, it was okay. She thought it was great. So I'll see you in a little while. Thank you, honey. Thank you very much for being here. We'll all be joined today by Nicole Williams, the mother of a 6-year-old member of the Culinary Union and a bartender. Can we get the Culinary Union to maybe vote for Trump? Because, you know, they're great people. They're always have a head of, you know, like a Democrat, the head, even if the Republican's better. And a lot of the Republicans aren't better, but I'm a lot better. And I'm the one that got this thing done. And so if we could speak to the head guy, let him be nice and easy, just relax. We're going to win. The state is looking very good. We just got a poll. We're leading by a lot. But we want to get the Culinary Union. How many members of the Culinary Union are here? Oh, you have a lot. I can tell you have a lot. But I think a lot of them, we had a poll done, and a lot of them are voting for us, I can tell you right now. But people that depend on tip income for our family. So, Nicole, if I could ask you to come up and say a few words. Hi, Nicole. Please. Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is the honor of my life to be up here with my favorite president. And his no tax on tips policy is going to help my family. It's going to bring immediate relief to my pocketbook and my 7 kids. And all of you here who have children and families to take care of, this is going to be a great thing for all of us. So let's get out and vote for President Trump. Let's win Nevada for President Trump. Let's get out there. Register all your friends and family. Tell everybody about this policy.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice. That's great. Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you. I'll bet she does a great job too. I'll bet you do a great job. Do you have any doubt about Nicole? I don't think so, right? You love it, right? You love doing it? It's great. I can see it. Thank you very much. We're also have a little bit of a special announcement. Our host, Javier, began in the restaurant business as a dishwasher, worked his way up to being a chef. Now he owns an entire family of Mexican restaurants in Las Vegas and the Las Vegas area. How many restaurants are there? How many? 5. This guy's got a lot of cash. That's fantastic. It's a great story. We love the Hispanic people, and the Hispanic people love us. He was just saying, he's not a big fan of what's happening on the other side. They'll destroy our country. We'll end up in a depression like in 1929 if they get in with what they're proposing. Last month, Joe Biden stopped at one of Javier's restaurants to tout his support in the Latino community. And, Joe walked in. It's like not the most, it wasn't too exciting when he walked in. He didn't know where the hell he was. What kind of a restaurant? Is this Italian? He says, is this a French restaurant? Looks like a French restaurant. And, we have to focus on her because he's gonzo, so we'll focus on her. She's terrible. She's worse than he is. By the way, he's the worst president in the history of the United States. Jimmy Carter is very happy because he is considered to be a brilliant president by comparison. He's a very happy man. And she's considered to be the worst vice president in history. I don't know who the hell did that. If they do polls and they do studies, she's considered to be the worst vice president in history. 6 weeks ago, they were laughing at her. She was a joke. And now she got the nomination. She didn't get any votes, but she got the nomination. Explain that one. But I understand that Javier has something he would like to say about that. And so I'll ask Javier to come up and say a couple of words. Thank you. About the meeting you had with Joe.
Oh, thank you for being here, President Donald Trump. Me and my family really appreciated you guys give us the opportunity to host this event, so important. And I was telling them earlier before you got here that I came when Ronald Reagan was the president. And you know what? I really miss those times. So I need you to please make America great again.
Thanks, Abby. Thank you. And we will. We will. You got a good sample.
My daughter over there,
Yes.
and she agrees with you 100%.
Good.
My daughter over there.
It's a beautiful daughter.
She really thinks that you are cuter than Kamala.
Oh, I see. She agrees on that. Well, that's a good thing to agree on. That's very nice. Thank you very much, Sonny. Appreciate it. Great job you're doing. So thank you to Javier, to everybody under my leadership. Our Latino American community has prospered like, as you know, and as he knows, prospered like never before. Yeah. And, we're winning. We won places. The governor of Texas called me. The last election, we won every border town along the border, and they're almost entirely Hispanic. And we won all of them. We won the votes. First time, they said, since Reconstruction. So I said, when you say Reconstruction, that's a little complicated word in a sense because it means a lot of things to a lot of people. But I said, that means Civil War. Is that what you're referring to? That's right. Since the Civil War, that's never happened. And we did it twice. We did it in 16 and we did even better in 20. We actually did much better in 20 than we did in 16, but lots of strange things happen in life, right? But we're doing better now than either of those two. There's more spirit. I mean, you look at outside in the street, how many people are out there, and I only hope they stick around when I leave and they come into your restaurant. You'll never be able to serve them, but just too many people. But you're going to see. But Hispanic American household incomes hit an all-time high under the Trump administration. Hispanic American unemployment rate hit the lowest it's ever hit, lowest ever. Hispanic American poverty rate reached a record low, the lowest number ever. And by the way, it's now inched up very substantially. And yesterday, Javier, they did something that was terrible. It was just found out. They reported that 818,000 jobs were here that weren't. They were fake. They reported fake jobs, and they were going to announce that after November 5th, the most important day in the history of our country, the election. They were going to report it after, but there was a whistleblower or somebody leaked it. There was a leaker, a friendly leaker, a patriot leaker, leaked it, and that's not a revision. You know, usually they call that a revision, like there's, 10,000 jobs. This is 818. I think it was the biggest number, certainly in memory. 818,000 fake jobs they reported. They don't exist. Total fake jobs. And this is what we're dealing with. And that's at a big number. That's a big, big downward number, in other words, on their reporting. But they reported these jobs, and now they've had to revise it and take them off the books. More than 1.5 million Hispanic Americans were lifted out of poverty during my administration, and the household wealth of the median Hispanic family grew by 65%. That's a lot, Javier. 65. It makes sense, right? Now it's heading south, by the way, just in case but we'll get it back up fast. The Hispanic American high school graduation rate reached an all-time high, and home ownership among Hispanics also hit a record high. And for working families and small businesses like this one, this is not a small business, this is a big business, but we'll call it a small business for tax purposes, okay? We delivered the largest tax cuts and regulation cuts in the history of our country. We achieved energy independence, and we built the greatest economy any time in the history of the world. It was the strongest economy anybody had ever seen. Under Kamala, it has been one disaster after another. Take a look at the border. You want to really see a disaster. I was there yesterday. What a disaster. After Kamala cast the tie-breaking votes on the bills that caused the worst inflation in decades, the Harris price hikes have cost the typical Nevada family. And you take a look. So the Nevada family spent $32,000 more under this horrible regime of people that don't know what the hell they're doing. Now Kamala is promising communist price controls on food. Her plan will cause catastrophic inflation, shortages of rationing. The restaurant industry will be obliterated. And I say, welcome to 1929. Do you know what 1929 was? You don't want to know, right? You don't want to know, but that's where they're headed if they do what they're planning. Kamala is also pledging the largest tax hikes in American history, and Las Vegas hospitality industry would actually never recover from that. It's the largest tax hikes in history. And, you heard her words last night. She doesn't talk about that. You notice they talked, I guess she mentioned the Trump name many, many times, like 19 or 21 or something. She didn't mention the border. She didn't mention inflation.
Nope.
She didn't mention the bad economy. She didn't mention crime.
Nope.
She didn't mention any of the things that she's supposed to be mentioning, but she mentioned Trump 21 times or some crazy thing. And she mentioned thank you about 50 times. Did you see the beginning? Thank you. 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 I said, what the hell is wrong with her? But then she recovered. She did much better. But she didn't tell anything. She didn't say anything. She talked about her family, how beautiful San Francisco was. I just put out a note. I said, well, the word was is very important because what the hell happened? Under her, as district attorney, she destroyed San Francisco. And then as the attorney general, she ruined the state of California with her stupid policies. But she was showing her beautiful life in San Francisco, and everybody was joking. That was before she destroyed it. She's supported the idea of a 70 to 80% tax hike. I don't think the man behind me will be happy. You wouldn't mind paying 80% in taxes, would you? What the hell? He says, whatever's good for America, right? 80% tax rate, and now she's even pushing a tax on unrealized capital gains.
Will destroy America.
In other words, the appraisers are going to make a lot of money, which will soon be applied to small business owners, and you will be forced to sell your restaurant immediately, and the new owner won't do the job, and this restaurant will be closed. But we're not going to let that happen, Javier. We're going to make it bigger, better, stronger, just like the country. So this is really beyond social, because she's a socialist, but she's really a Marxist. A Marxist is a step beyond. Remember how you said at the State of the Union, we will not have socialism in America. We will never be a socialist country. I was right. We skipped over socialism. We're down to communism. Okay. I was right about it, though. I like to be right. Thank you. I like that woman. Where are you? I like that. She said, you're always right. But this is beyond socialism. This is the beginning of communism, and it really is, and we can't let that happen. You look at Venezuela, you look at some of these countries that we all know so well, and what happened to them can happen to us. It's just a bigger version. That's where we're headed if this group gets elected. But we'll not let Kamala and the group turn America into a communist nation. Not going to let it happen. We can't let it happen. I'll cut taxes, and what we're doing is we're cutting taxes, regulations. We're going to defeat inflation, rapidly bring prices down, and make America affordable again. It's not affordable. People can't buy, as Javier said before, they can't buy sneakers. They can't buy anything. To help seniors, we will have no tax on Social Security benefits. That's a big deal. I don't know. I'm trying to figure for restaurant workers, and all workers, tip workers, it's no tax on tips, but the Social Security, no tax, because they've driven them out of business. These people have suffered, and they've done things the right way. They've saved, and then the inflation destroyed them. And we're going to have no tax on Social Security benefits, and that's a big thing, and it's very important. Just as important as what I said before about the no tax on tips. Kamala wants to bring sky-high California energy prices to the rest of the country, and they have just destroyed California. First time ever, more people left California than came in. They've never had that before because they have the best weather, the most beautiful land. Everything is so good, but they have a terrible governor. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but he's got a great line of bullshit, you know? He's got a good line of stuff. We're doing great in California. You know the U-Haulets and the trailers and stuff? They go to Texas, Florida, other states, right? And they don't know what to do. They only go one way. They want to try and get them. They want to try and get them back. They have a hard time bringing them back. They don't know what to do. But under the extremist net zero energy policies, what you call them, the extremist, the radical people, they're really hurting our country and ultimately destroying our country. The environmental extremists, we call them. Nevada electricity prices have already increased by 50%. So it's 50%. Do you see them going up there? I mean, you see that? They've gone up by 50% over a very short period of time, and I'll unleash American energy, and we'll cut your prices in half. We'll be able to get your energy prices cut in half, and that goes for the whole nation. That's ridiculous that they've increased that much, and you see that. Wow, that's terrible. I'll deliver universal school choice, letting your child go to the public, private, religious, charter school of your choice, the family's choice, and it's something. School choice is a big deal. It's a big deal. Everybody wants school choice. And I'll support our police and stop the crime wave that was caused by this woman. What she's done on the border, she was the border czar. She doesn't want to talk about it. She said, I'm not the border czar. For 4 years, she's the border czar. Now she's not the border czar all of a sudden. You know why? Because people are coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. They're coming in by the millions, and they're coming from jails and prisons. They're slightly different meaning. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're emptying out so many of their cities of criminals, and they're busing them into the good old USA. They're busing the worst gang members, the worst drug dealers, terrorists, and they're bringing them in and dropping them here. And they're saying, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to kill you if you come back, or we'll give you the death penalty, but we're going to kill you if you come back. So they're dropping their criminals here. They're emptying their jails and dumping everybody. And these are tough people, too. And they're dumping them into our country. And you take a look at the prison populations all over the world. We're not just talking about South America, all over the world, the Congo in Africa. Many people are coming out of the Congo, and they're coming from jails in the Congo. So their jails are being emptied. The mental institutions are being emptied. And they're all coming to the USA. There'll be customers very shortly of Javier's fine restaurant. What's happening is horrible. It's horrible. And they're destroying our country. And we're going to do the largest deportation in the history of America. We have no choice. We have no choice. And you see the death. You see the death and destruction they're causing. I was at the border yesterday with some people whose families were just obliterated by these horrible, horrible people that have been allowed to come in. And remember, terrorists are coming in at levels we've never seen before. Only bad things can happen. So I'll secure the border, keep radical Islamic terrorists out of our country, and we will do something that's very important. I will prevent World War III. You have World War III is on the cusp. You take a look at what's happening. Biden didn't have a clue what he did with Russia,
the people
Ukraine.
Were killed by illegals.
What that happened, that's a war that should have never started. If I were president, zero chance that would have happened. It would have never, and it didn't for 4 years. Same thing with Israel. October 7th would have never happened. And you know what else? You wouldn't have had that horror show, the most embarrassing day in our history, Afghanistan. And very importantly, you wouldn't have had inflation, because inflation was caused by energy. Now it's caused by everything. And the prices are so high that people are being driven out of business, including a lot of Hispanic people, a lot of black people. What's happening with the black population is they're losing their jobs to the people that are pouring across the border. The black population is being decimated. You wait till you see the real numbers that come. They're losing their jobs because Biden and Harris are allowing millions of people to come into our country, and they're taking black people's jobs, African-American jobs. They're taking those jobs, and a lot of those jobs are Hispanic jobs too. And the next thing that's going to be hit, you can tell your union leaders, the unions are going to be hit really, really hard. So I just want to end by saying that November 5th is a very important day. I believe it will go down as the most important day in the history of our country. That means you have to vote. It's going to be a big vote. If we win this state, if we win Nevada, we're going to win something that's going to be very, very special. We're going to win the whole thing. If we win Nevada, we're going to win the whole thing. And I don't know how the hell we can lose it. I've never seen such support, the support we have. So to Javier and his family, it's nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like that group over there. You know, they're a little bit frisky, but I like you very much. So I just want to thank everybody here. You're incredible people. I'm behind you 100%. November 5th, you're going to vote a little earlier than that, but whatever you got to vote. Make sure your vote is secure, because remember, they cheat like hell. Make sure, and again, we win this state. We win the whole thing, and we're going to turn our country around. So thank you very much. Thanks very much, Javier.
40 states. All right, I got to cut that music off. Otherwise, bad things happen from YouTube. Okay, so in case you joined late, which I'm sure a couple of you probably did, RFK dropped out of the race and announced he's going to be taking some sort of position in the Trump administration. Well, when he drops out of it, he did what most candidates do, which is he suspended his race. No one ever drops out officially. To this day, that everyone always suspends their campaign, because apparently that enables you, in case, God forbid, some sort of scenario happens, you can jump back in. So, someone has some sort of physical calamity. And he was saying, but I want to go over some of the things he said. When you hear him talk, you basically realize that as far as his knowledge of things that are happening, the way he can present himself, he is more of he's easily the most erudite candidate that was left in this race. I think even the biggest Trump supporter will recognize that he's able to break things down in ways that few politicians have this century, to be frank. This is a very old school type politician. The way he talks is the way every politician spoke 40 years ago. It's not the way politicians have been talking pretty much since the 80s. The level of detail he goes into in identifying problems and breaking it down is really extensive. And I think politicians feel like that it's not winning. When you talk at that type of level, the sad reality of our country is our education has been dumbed down to the point that that's considered not a winning strategy compared to slogans, and that's what Democrats are banking on with Kamala. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome, Squeaky Wheel, for covering this. That was Squeaky Wheel here. So thank you for the super chat. Give you a little horn there, and I owe a whole bunch of horns. I know that I didn't want to disrupt anything that was happening there, so that's why I wasn't blasting the horn there. But I want to go over a bunch of things that people talked about while RFK wasn't making his announcement, and he went. If you missed it, you really should check out that speech and go back to the stream earlier if you joined late, because he was basically blasting the DNC, blasting their corruption, blasting how in league they are with corporations, blasting their lack of democracy, blasting their censorship, blasting their terrible health policies, disastrous health policies, blasting them on everything. I don't remember if he hit on the economy. He really didn't hit on the things that Trump tends to hit on, like the economy and the border. It was much more about the foreign interventionism. It was about their health policies and their censorship. Those are the three things that he made a big deal about and said was what motivated him to get into the race. I'm going to talk with you about a few different positions that he may be ideally suited for before I get on out of here, because I just want to give you my thoughts as to what this does and what roles he can take and what this potentially does for the election. The timing of this, I think, was brilliant. I think it was purposeful and it was brilliant. DNC convention is over. Kamala gave her stupid, empty-headed speech where she just gave a whole bunch of slogans and didn't announce any policies. Certainly nothing new. Every policy that she's dropped on the public so far, as Trump pointed out, has been a copycat of his, like no tips on wages, or he says 5,000 back for kids and she says 6,000. She's basically some stupid copycat in that respect. Nothing new or original or plans. She has no explanations for why it's not going into effect now. Why not do it now? Everyone knows Joe's not running the country. And because she has no capacity to do it, and she has no ability to actually carry through on any of these things because she's a weak and ineffective wannabe leader. And then the other policies she's advocating for are recognized even by the left as being disastrous. She was talking about price fixing. That is literally what set Venezuela down its path to have hyperinflation, food shortages. No one can eat in Venezuela. And it's all because Maduro introduced price fixing. That's what every economist says. And that's her fix for the economy. I mean, she's so stupid. I mean, it's just stupid. It's literally the choice of feast or famine, these two candidates, because this is utter disaster. But instead, she's like, we're going to do it for America and justice. This is the greatest story ever. And she's just like a whole bunch of slogans without saying. And as I was explaining last night, and I explained on Layback Law, I'm explaining to you right now, the difference between a slogan and a policy is if it's a policy, they're explaining to you how something is going to get done. If we say take care of the border crisis, that's a slogan. If we say build a wall, that's a policy. because that's how we're expressing how it is we're planning to get that slogan accomplished. What methods are you going to employ? It's right. Everyone has all sorts of nice ideas, but that's how that you can't just say, I'm going to do something. I'm going to fight for the middle class. We're going to institute justice. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, because what does that mean? How are you going to get it done? But that's what wannabe leaders do. They throw out slogans and they try and basically say, yay, this is a great thing. And they don't tell you how anything is going to be accomplished. And when they don't tell you how, as Trump pointed out, no interviews, and RFK pointed out also, no interviews for 35 days, 0 interviews. Everything has to be scripted. Everything has to be scripted for her. Because she knows that if anyone were to actually dig into what she has to offer, it would reveal just how empty and hollow she is, and that she's being propped up by the media who are all being like, yay, not Trump, and not offering any suggestions as to how to make this country, which has been failing disastrously, any better. So instead, what do? They lie and say, this is phenomenal. Everything's phenomenal. And look at, crime is down and the inflation is down. It's like they set these high water terror and border crisis is down. This is what they say. So in other words, they start off the first couple of years are just like really terrible. And when they say it's down, what they mean is it's down from the terrible high watermarks we just set last year. Oh, look, it's getting better. It's always getting better in an election year. Of course it is, because you're actually trying to accomplish something as opposed to purposefully not trying to accomplish anything productive, anything that Americans want. Like how tired must we all be of the same stupid BS over and over again? It's ridiculous. Anyway, so and he was talking basically, he spent the first part of his speech killing Democrats and then zeroing in somewhat on Kamala and how they completely made it impossible for someone who's not in league with corporations to run a campaign, costing them, millions of dollars in legal fees, trying to just challenge him here, challenge him there, make him run all across the country, trying to defend his right to stay on the ballot, having the legacy media come out and write defamatory statements and articles about him, just destroying him in the public eye, which he says are defamatory. Defamatory means it's not true. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'm quoting him. They may be defamatory. I have no idea. They may be true or they may be complete BS. Some of the stories that I read about his babysitter, this is one of the stories that I read on one of my evening streams this past week, was where they were talking about how his babysitter, how he had groped her and touched her and all this other stuff. And then she finally quit. When did she quit? When he met with Trump. It's like, wait, so he's harassing you and assaulting you? That's okay, but he meets with Trump. That's what sets you off. I was saying, I don't understand what the hell is happening here. So I'm inclined to believe him when he says that these stories are BS and intentionally defamatory to try and devastate him. I will say this. I'm gonna tell you that I think that there is a risk. There is a risk in announcing that he's going to be part of HHS or any NIH or any sort of health department. The risk is, and while a lot of what he was saying made sense, he was talking about, spent a great deal of time talking about how autism and other physical ailments are destroying this country. He has been blacklisted for a long time with respect to his health policies, because he's been anti-vax in a lot of different ways. And so if Trump were to go out there and announce him as to be the head of some sort of health agency prior to the election, I can promise you, this is not a prediction of like, this is what I think will happen. I can promise you, legacy media will describe Trump as about to kill us all by instituting this person who's anti-vax. I can promise you that will happen. So there is a risk associated with that, because some of his health policies have been frequently or ideas about health have been frequently challenged by legacy media. So I can promise you they'll be like, you see, we told you Trump's going to kill us all. He's bringing in this guy who's going to like destroy and vaccine. That's what's going to happen. It's an unnecessary controversy for him to bring on now. It's a very unnecessary controversy for him to designate a role. So I hope they don't designate they don't designate a role. I'd be okay with him being associated with health. I just don't think that pre-election it's a strategic move for Trump to throw it out there because it's you're creating a line of attack, and that's all they have. They have no policies. All they have is attack. So why would you want to give them a line of attack like that? I think that that's where you're basically taking this glorious moment, which it is him turning over his voters and pushing them to vote for Trump, particularly in battleground states. And what he said is he's going to take his name off the ballot in battleground states and leave it on in non-battleground states so people who want to vote for him can vote for him. He's going to take it off in battleground states and urge people who support him to vote for Trump in those states. Because he said he never wanted to be a spoiler. His objective was to be someone who would compete if he had a chance to win. Right now, there is no path to victory in his estimation, short of one interesting thing that I'll talk about in a few minutes, where he's talking about if there's a tie. We'll address that, and I'll address that in a few moments. But I just wanted to go through with you some of the comments that came out during the course of that just sort of inspired me with some thoughts. So TextVet says that he shared with me on X three of the best trollings in the DNC. I think you'll enjoy the tweets. One interview, one photobombing, and O'Keefe. So this is the one. The only one that I hadn't seen was the one that Clinton Russell shared. I see those three that you shared with me here, TextVet. I'm going to try to come back to this later if I remember, because I want to get to dealing with RFK for now. So I actually put this aside, which is Kennedy card holds no weight with me. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way. He's very polarizing because he has views that will straddle. That in this area, he's very anti-gun. He seems to be pro-abortion, but like he's anti-war and he's anti going into. So it's like in certain ways the left likes him and the right hates him. In other ways, the right likes him because he's against tyranny, he's against censorship, and he's really, he sort of plays himself as being a populist. And I think that's a fair point, and that's why he was potentially eating into Trump. The reason he was potentially eating into Kamala was because of because his family is Democrat royalty. I mean, the Kennedy name is up there with what I guess now the Obamas are up there, and the Clintons and the Kennedys, and his family has the richest tradition in Democrat history. I know that everyone knows Senator Kennedy today from the right side of the aisle, but on the left, Kennedys have a very rich tradition in the Democrat Party. It was the most based disclosure ever. Some of the stuff he was dropping, what was happening behind the scenes, was really fascinating to hear. And I agreed with this also when I was listening to it. It's one thing for Trump to talk about how the Democrats are corrupt and evil. Kennedy is clearly not that. He's clearly not Trump. He's very far from that. And when he's calling out how evil and tyrannical they are, that is a different thing to people who are not in the right side of the aisle. He carries a lot of weight, and that's what I was saying to you, what I was thinking when I pulled this up is we're not his target audience. The objectives that he was trying to express here, you're saying it holds no weight with you. I get that. I think there's a lot of people who would say that. We're not his target audience. It's a different mindset that his audience is. And he's trying to sell them about how terrible Democrats are. That's what's so powerful. So it might hold no weight with you, and I'm sure you're not alone. That's why I highlighted this comment from a couple hours ago, for an hour and a half ago, because I was like, yeah, but we're not, it's not about us. It's about people who actually are listening and thinking who are not in the Trump camp. And there are some. The man who has abundance of testosterone, wow, I was so impressed. I thought it was good comment too. So this was when I mentioned I was going to come back to this later, that he said that he sees there still is, not suspending because there still is a path. He says that if they tie at 269, which according to his polling is exactly where they're at right now, that there's a path for him to be elected. And I think Town Crier is correct. I think you have to get at least one electoral vote in order to get in there, according to this. So I haven't looked at the 12th Amendment in the last month or so, but that's my recollection also. So I think Town Crier is correct. I also agree with what Joe here was saying, which is that it's important to give reasons without just drilling on cackling Kamala, copycat Kamala, communist Kamala. It's much better to just talk about how this country has a chance right now. We're at a crossroads, and we have a chance to either embrace something good and happy and productive, or continue the disasters that we've had for the last 4 years. It's the easiest message to sell. It's the easiest message to sell, and I really want to see him take that positive spin, that there's going to be a better America for all of us, rather than the backwards spiraling death chamber of illegals streaming across our border and disastrous economy that we all have seen under this administration that she's second in command in. So, and with respect to nominating him as Secretary of State, I kind of like that because I'd like to have him fighting against foreign wars. And this is one of the things I was talking about last night, which is I don't need to agree with everyone in his cabinet on every policy. I want him to put people in there who, on that issue that they're overseeing, I agree with them. And he is against foreign interventionism, which is a reason that I would say, yeah, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with that role for him. I don't think that's what he wants. I think he really wants to address health. He spent so much time talking about health. I think he wants to get into some sort of capacity with respect to alerting the nation to the impact on our children's health specifically. He was talking about how autism has climbed from 1 in 15,000 to 1 in 36, and in California it's 1 in 22, which over the last 20 years. And he claims it's not because they changed the standards of how they measure it. It's just a higher incidence. It's just a lot more frequent, which is freaky. It's terrifying, and that we need to be looking into these root causes, which he identifies as being processed foods. So, TextVet said, I think this really puts things back in Trump's heavy favor. I agree with you. I think that this is significant. I think this is really significant. I think we are now, right today, until before RFK came in its announcement, that was Kamala's crescendo. And we have 75 days now to watch her crash and burn. And we all pray that the burn is massive. I don't want to see Trump eke out a victory. I want to see 40 states. I want to see a 400-point win for him. Well, I mean, I want to see him get well over 375 electoral votes. Apparently, CNN cut away when he started talking about DNC rigging the primary. I thought that was funny. He's speaking to his people that are skeptical of Trump. This is smart. Yeah, this is exactly. I agree with what Kevin was saying here, and this ties in to the comment I had pulled up earlier, where he's saying it doesn't hold any weight with me. The objective is not us. The objective is talking to his audience, who are going to sit there and actually have the attention span to listen to him walk people through issues and agree with him on 9 out of 10 issues. So that's who he was talking to. A classic liberal. That's really what he was talking to, a classic liberal. So, yeah, I think that showing the benefits to his people of supporting Trump was great. It was a great move on his part, because he's never going to have this audience again. The audience he had today, the amount of people covering it and interested in it, it's unlikely ever and again in his life he will have that many people watching, unless he runs a successful campaign in 2028. But certainly for the next 2-3 years, today's audience is the high watermark audience that RFK is going to generate. So, yeah, this was the time to do it. It was time to do it. Thank you so much. I had them sort of put away before, but those of you who are following, I thank you for bringing them in. Beers and BS. Welcome to the following. I am not the leader Everyone knows Joe is not the leader. I'm going to say it again. Joe is not the leader of the following. The following is not at all a cult type of cult. Sean mentioned, I saw this and I put this aside. I tried looking at Sean's stream and I didn't see what it was. If you want to send it to me on YouTube, I'll try looking into it as to whether it's coverable. Thank you, Reform Convict, for that. And remember, for 9 months. There you go. You've been praying for RFK Jr. to be Trump's head of HHS. Again, I don't want. I'd be okay with it. I think that introducing him to that type of role at this time would give legacy media way too big an opening into trying to attack Trump. That he's a threat to the lives of Americans. That's my big concern because he has been excoriated by the media as being radical medical perspectives, and that's why I'm afraid of. Want to give you a little shout out over here. Thank you for this is Bighorn Week, so we're skipping the show for this week. Funny when Dems say they care about Latinos and embrace open borders, then point to Cesar Chavez. He hated illegal immigration, taking jobs, lowering wages. Well, there you go. Thank you so much, Natalie Joe. I appreciate you. It was very thoughtful. Listen to RFK Jr. video yesterday. It describes his vax position and why he's being smeared by being called anti-vax. It's a good video. I'm not saying that he is anti-vax. I'm saying that is the same way Trump has been labeled racist, and look how hard he has to fight against that. That is the card. That is the label that has been successfully attached to RFK, and you're not going to overcome that in 2 months. Is it fair? Is it accurate? I don't think so. But you're not going to overcome that label. So, and people are scared that Trump's going to kill us all. That's how he lost the last election, or that's how the election was close enough for it to be stolen out from under him. It's funny because Kamala got Cryberry Kinzinger turncoat for them at DNC, and Trump said, "Hold my beer," and turned Kennedy. It's true. It's a great call. Great call. And Kennedy did way better objectively in terms of influence, 1,000 times better. No one in the RNC cares about Kinzinger, and a lot of people in DNC care about RFK. Great call. I didn't think of that. Good job. I no idea who I'm voting for now. We need a viable third and fourth or more party. You have no choice. You want another? Look, we've swallowed up 20 million illegals. Are we going to be fine? You're going to be okay with 40 million, 60 million, 80 million? How many more tens of millions do we need to have coming across this border? You watch this censorship come left and right. You got to hold your nose. I know you don't like the man. Hold your nose and just be like, you know what? This is not an election that we can let the Democrats possibly take. I agree with you. I was talking last night, Avi, about how yesterday, how in an ideal world, and I said, I cannot fathom how we would get to this point. But in an ideal world, we would see the DNC split into two parties where you have your Democrats or your classic liberals, and then you would have your progressives. And that way the Democrats would not be supporting grooming children. They have to. They feel they have to politically. They would stand up for women instead of bringing trans into sport and women's sports. And at the same time that we see the Republican Party split from neocons and MAGA, where both parties split into two. That would be ideal. If such a thing happened, we would see marriages in Congress on bills and different things that would make completely different bedfellows. Now, everyone, if you're a Republican, I have to side with the Republicans, otherwise I'm going to be hearing it. If you're a Democrat, AOC, look at how she turned into a sellout. Look at on the left side of the aisle. She was a progressive. Now, all of a sudden, she put out a video 3 weeks ago. I'm going to share this with you. I'm glad you're here, okay? I'm glad you're here. Here's I actually set this aside. I was going to bring this up on a show, but just to point this out, as far as having new candidates or viable third or fourth party candidates. Okay, I want to share with you this quick 60 seconds here. I gotta see if I can find it. No, this is not it. this fast. Here it is. I want you to watch 60 seconds of AOC. This is her 3 weeks ago. 60 seconds of AOC 3 weeks ago. Just you can see how powerful Washington is. 60 seconds of Kamala 3 weeks ago.
I'm going to say what a lot of these folks aren't saying. I'm just going to say it. If you think that there is consensus among the people who want Joe Biden to leave, that they will support Kamala, Vice President Harris, you would be mistaken. And I'm going to say that because if they're going to come out and say all their little things on background off the record, but they're not going to be fully honest, I'm going to be honest for them. I'm in these rooms. I see what they say in conversations. A lot of them are not just interested in removing the president. They are interested in removing the whole ticket.
Yeah, that's her 3 weeks ago. This is her this week.
America has before us a rare and precious opportunity.
Look at the cities. This is insanity. It's insanity. This is her at the DNC.
In Kamala Harris, we have a chance to elect a president who is for the middle class because she is from the middle class.
Oh, just stop. Just stop, you stupid idiocy. Little slogans. No policy, just slogans. My point is, if we actually could split into 4 parties, you would see that on issues like, let's say, I don't know, supporting Ukraine, that you would have people from the left side of the aisle in the Progressive Party and people from the MAGA Party would be on the same page saying, what the hell are we doing? No. And then you actually have fair votes where people are not voting, because they feel I have to vote this way if I want to maintain any political power. It'd be infinitely better. But for now, that's not where the world is. That's not where reality is. And that's why I'm urging you, V Radio, hold your nose, punch in or tap in on Donald Trump and just come back in 4 years. JFK and RFK Sr. would be center right by today's standard. It's true. They like RFK Jr. would not recognize today's Progressive Democrat Party. 100% agree with you. Because I think RFK Jr. is true to his father's values. I 100% agree with you. I think RFK told us what JFK would say and what his dad would say. That's what we heard from him today. He told us what RFK would say today about Democrats. I keep hearing this message that presidential policies don't affect the economy in their current term, and that it's Trump's fault that the economy is the way it is. Just look at the FEC economic report at the end of his term. It's a joke, because you see that everyone knows that if you jack up the price of energy, everything goes up. Everything goes up. It's not the only force in an economy, but it certainly has. It's one of the rare forces that has the ability to change the landscape of everything. Which ambassadorship do you think Shanahan will get should Trump win? I don't know. Ukraine. I don't know. Dear leader is best. I'm the host. I am not the leader of the following. Thank you. I hope Trump puts RFK in charge of the CIA, FBI, FDACC, and the DOE, or just make up a whole new position for him. That would be really funny if he was like overseeing the FBI, like looking to expose everything that happened. That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. That was father's murder. He doesn't think that they got the right guy. He doesn't think it was Sirhan. I live in a country where a multi-party system, it just paves the way for bureaucrats to run things through backroom deals. The U.S. party system is much more versatile and democratic because it allows grassroots movements. Does it? You should check out the speech that RFK made, because he said it's impossible to have grassroots movements here. Impossible. What looks like a grassroots movement is actually some Soros-funded crap. if you've heard of it. Grassroots movements do not get anywhere. Do you think that Obama went from being some sort of community organizer to president in 10 minutes because it was grassroots? Come on. Grassroots don't work. We actually, what feels like we have a political change now, and the reason that a populist like Trump is coming in here is because he's someone who actually came in with money, a great deal of money from the outside. But grassroots, no. You always need money at the end of the day. Question is whether that money is coming with a corporate angle or it's coming with an angle of actually caring about America. But money dominates politics here. Let's make a Bigley 10 party a reality. Amen. Not really a catchy phrase, but I'm totally down with the sentiments. All right. Anyway, it is almost Sabbath here. I got a few hours. I got to go shopping and stuff and running around. I thank you all for joining me. This was a phenomenal day, a phenomenal day. And the timing of it could not possibly have been any better. If you're like, you know that Kamala is cussing up a storm. And they made this bed themselves. They rejuvenated Trump by going after him and saying that all the stuff he said, that he's a martyr and that they're coming after him because he's standing in their way. They proved it true. I'm going to tell you, a year and a half ago, I was not sold on supporting Donald Trump. I was like, I don't know. He's 4 years older. There's a a lot of baggage there that he's got. I'm liking some of the stuff I'm hearing from some of these other candidates. You know, I'm not positive. I was like, I'm starting that I'm voting for Trump, but I'm not married to it, and I could have been pushed off it. And then they indicted him, and every indictment made me say, how can I not stand with this guy? If I don't stand with him now, they're going to think that political persecutions work. They're going to believe that I and others like me will be swayed as soon as you drop indictment charges on someone into thinking, oh, this person's a criminal. I can't vote for this guy. He's a criminal. So they're the ones who generated it. The Democrats made this boogeyman. They made this boogeyman. They made him into a boogeyman, and they persecuted him and went after him with one corrupt, ridiculous judicial approach after another with lawfare that was unbelievable. And then they tried killing him. I'm not saying that was. I'm not going to go down a conspiracy road. I don't know what the hell happened with Thomas Crooks. I don't know. But certainly someone who agrees with them tried killing him. So how the hell do we not stand with him and fight? And that's my final note here. We all need to fight. This is it. We're down to the last 75 days here. This is crunch time. This is it. Don't just sit there saying I'm rooting for him. Talk to people, engage people. Make sure he gets not just a win, a freaking landslide that cannot be ripped out from under him by some ridiculous ballot printing machine. This is the time. This is the age. We have to fight. Start not tomorrow, today. Talk to people today. This is where we don't just get a win, we get a friggin' landslide because they have whatever little policies they have are self-destructive, and what policies that Trump is bringing in here actually seem like they have a chance of turning this country back into what you and I remember it to be. So I'm just going to urge you all, as I say Godspeed to you, don't rest. Fight, and have a great weekend.